Oh, Vigneswaraya Namaha. Namaste, friends. I am Gurti Vishweswara Rao and already introduced myself in my earlier videos correspond to the chapters in my book. The book's title is Bhagavad Gita, A Commoner's Viewpoint, which I got it printed by National Press Chennai. It is available on Amazon and Flipkart also. This particular video is for the fifth chapter in my book and corresponds to Karma Sannyas Yoga in Bhagavad Gita. As in the book, in each video, I am trying to give first a brief account or gist of Bhagavan's message contained in the particular chapter, followed by my own viewpoint expressed again in brief. My point of view is just as understood by me, a commoner amongst multitude of commoners in this world. The chapter starts with Arjuna's query to Bhagavan Sri Krishna about which of the two, Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga, is good for him to follow. Bhagavan replies, both bear same fruit, yet since practice of Karma Yoga is easier than the other, he asserts that the Karma Yoga is superior. This he proclaims in the following sloka. Sankhya Yogau pradak balaha, pravadantina panditaha, yakamapya sithas samyak, bhuyor vindate phalam. Meaning, some may project both the yogas, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga, in different perspectives by their ignorance. In reality, a person who gets established in any one of them, he attains the goal which is the same for both, that is reaching the Supreme. Yoga means a path or practice to attain realization of self vis-a-vis, that is in relation to the Supreme Self. Further, Bhagavan says in this sloka, Jeha sa nicha sannyasi, yonadveshana kanchati, yadvandohi mahabaho, sukham bandhat pramichyate. With the meaning, whosoever entertains enmity towards none, and whosoever is free of desires is a nicha sannyasi, and whoever develops equanimity towards all twin possibilities in life will be free from bondages. Further, Bhagavan says, without performing actions, reaching a state of sannyasa is difficult to accomplish, and Karma Yogi, who always keeps his mind fixed on him, quickly realizes him. In the following sloka, Yoga Yukto Visuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarabhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvannapi na lipyate. In this sloka, Bhagavan clarifies that Karma Yogi, who with his mind and senses under control, and with Antarghana Suddhi, that is purity in mind and intellect, perceives Paramatma in all beings, and he remains unstained, that is unblemished, that is clean, even though performing actions. Bhagavan also explains, a man who attained wisdom, that is a self-realized soul, being a nicha sannyasi, absolves himself from a doership, even though engaged in seeing, hearing, eating, touching, smelling, walking, sleeping, breathing, speaking, opening and closing eyes, and believes that it is the senses, that is sense organs, that are moving among the objects. Thus simply, he remains only as a witness to the activities of his own senses, and he feels he is a non-doer. Bhagavan also says, one who performs actions in the name of God Almighty and with no interest whatsoever does not incur sin in the same way as water won't wet a lotus leaf. Bhagavan discloses, a Karma Yogi performs actions via his intellect, mind, indriyas and the body without any attachment and with the only aim of purifying his heart. Such a Nishkam Karma Yogi, renouncing the fruits of his actions, receives supreme peace. One who does actions with selfish interest on the fruits of his actions gets tied down to bondages. Bhagavan further ascertains, an enlightened being mentally renounces the doership of all his actions attributable to Navadvaras, that is the 9 gates of a body, that is a mouth, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, genital and rectum, and he identifies himself with Paramatma and perpetually enjoys his bliss. Ignorance in a soul is destroyed by knowledge of the Supreme Self, Bhagavan says. The knowledge, like the sun, enlightens one about the ultimate reality. Such enlightened souls realize their identity with the Supreme Self, relish always in Paramatma's thoughts, and finally reach a state of not to return to this mortal world. In this sloka, Bhagavan says, Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastani Sunichaiva Sopakecha Panditaha Samadarsanha. With the meaning, such enlightened souls feel no distinction between jivas around him and see Paramatma in all. In a learned Brahmin with knowledge, in a cow, in an elephant, in a dog, and in a Chandala. Bhagavan further clarifies, with such an attitude of equanimity, they get free of all bondages in this mortal world itself and get established in the Paramatma, the Absolute. He further elaborates, such a jnani, the knower of reality, neither rejoices in achieving what is pleasant nor grieves when confronting the unpleasant. Bhagavan further elaborates in this following sloka, Bhaya Sparsheshu Saktatma, Vindyatmatmani Sukham, Sabhram Yoga Suktatma, Sukham Akshayam Asrute. With the meaning, such a jnani, with mind detached from external objects of his senses, derives unbounded divine happiness from within. Bhagavan continues to explain, all these sensual pleasures are bearers of pain. Knowing this truth, a jnani, that is the knower of reality, spurns them away, that is, rejects them. Also, one who diverts himself, that is, who dissociates himself of raga dvesha, that is, desire and anger, is a yogi and a happy being in this very life. Bhagavan advises that by practice of shutting the thoughts about external objects and by learning to fix the gauge between the eyebrows and by practicing to regulate the breathing process, one gets control over the mind, intellect and indriyas, and such a practicant gets freed from lust, fear and anger. I now express my viewpoint on the message we just received from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in this chapter. By the stage in this chapter, we can assume that Arjuna fully recovered from his initial state of indecision and came out of his despair after having heard from Paramatma about the futility of his worry and futility of his indecision to fight or not to fight. Having received a clear understanding from Paramatma, first on Sankhya Yoga and next on Karma Yoga, but still being unclear about Paramatma's intentions in giving this message, Arjuna is now eager to know about which are the two paths that Paramatma educates him to follow. Of course, this doubt should bother us also more deeply. Paramatma in his reply makes an unequivocal or unambiguous assertion that Karma Yoga is superior of the two and it is easy to follow, while both Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga lead one to same destination, that is realization of Supreme Soul Paramatma. Bhagavan further has said, the practice of Jnana Yogi is replete with stricter control and stricter way of life on the path to enlightenment. In fact, this shall relieve many of us also. Bhagavan wants us to know that sannyasa, the path of complete renunciation of actions, is difficult to practice. This truth we are already aware. We remember how Gautam Buddha, who was known as Siddhartha in his earlier days, has forsaken, that left behind his royal life and went on leading a life of sannyasi, a life of renunciation, subjecting himself to lot of penance, that self-punishment, before he became Buddha, an enlightened person. Similarly, we know Sri Ramana Maharshi, who led a life of vairagya, that is renunciation, at a very young age, subjecting himself to strict meditation, getting himself isolated or aloof from the outside world, being oblivious or unconscious to bodily sufferings before he became a Jnana Yogi. Along with these great personalities, we also know in our times such Sankhya or Jnana Yogis, seers like Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya, Paramacharya Sri Sansagar Saraswati, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and many other divine personalities. Being commoners, we are at the lowest rung of the ladder insofar as the knowledge or mystery of this life is concerned, with little or no knowledge about this universe, the surrounding nature and its varied facets. Here it is very enlightening to know from Bhagavan in this sloka about the significance of Karma Yoga, the path of action. Sanyasastu Mahabaho, Dukkam Aptum Ayogatha, Yogayukto Munirbrahma, Nachirinadhikachati. Meaning, without performance of action, renunciation of action is not possible. And a seeker of truth, purified by devotion to action, attains realization of the Supreme Self quickly. We get the full portrayal or essence of Karma Yoga if, along with this sloka, we complement the following sloka also. This sloka we already heard in Bhagavan's message earlier. Let me repeat this sloka here. Yogajukto Visuddhatma, Vijitatma Jitendriya, Sarvabhutat Bhutatma, Koronapi na Lipyate. Meaning that one with control over his mind, with his sense organs restrained, and with Antakaran Suddhi, that is purity of mind and intellect, and who realizes his self, that is the divinity within himself, He can see divinity in all beings around, and he is not blemished, that is, not stained or corrupted even when he is engaged in his actions. Here, we must also be aware of the fact many great luminaries like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan in the recent past have also asserted that Gita has shown what sort of life one needs to follow in order to properly harmonize jnana, sannyasa, and karma. That is, how to properly harmonize knowledge, renunciation, and right action. We know enlightened people like Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Sitamma, and many others. These are all karma yogis who pursued path of right action and who led a dharmic life of nishkam karma and remained lead kindly lights to the mankind throughout their lives. Dr. Sitamma, if you remember, of late 18th century, born in Andhra Pradesh, South India, she was fondly recognized as Upper Annapurna, named after the goddess Annapurna in the holy place Kashi, India, because of her selfless service to the poor and the needy in providing food till the very last day of her life. It is not a surprise if the life of Dharmavyadha, described in chapter 5, Aranya Parva, Mahabharata, also comes to our minds when we think of a Karma Yogi. A mind-churning and awe-inspiring narrative is his life. Dharmavyadha is a butcher or meat seller by profession and is an unassuming and simple person, duly fulfilling his responsibilities towards his family with old parents and leading a life of a Karma Yogi. Once a hermit by name Kaushika, even though himself being a sannyasi, still stung or troubled by egoistic qualities, was directed to meet Dharmavyadha and get enlightened. He got enlightened by Dharmavyadha in learning the truth about virtues of a Karma Yogi, performing karmas, that is actions, duly following Swadharma and Nishkam Karma. We could easily understand that all these Karma Yogis had kept their senses and mind under perfect control, renounced all their ahankara, that is, egocentric qualities, and could live in peace and contentment while performing their actions in the spirit of Nishkam Karma and an attitude of Vairagya, that detachment. This is just the gist of Bhagavan's message also, which we find in the following two slokas in the present chapter. The first sloka reads, Yukta karmaphalam tyaktva shantimapnoti naistikim ayukta kamakarena phalesikto nibhajyate. Meaning, Bhagavan says, one without selfishness, who won't bother about the fruits of his actions, attains peace. On the other hand, one who is selfish and is infatuated with his desire and gets attached to the fruits of his actions, he is constrained by bondages. In the second sloka, Sarva karmani manasa sanyasaste sukham vasi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan na kamya. Meaning, Bhagavan reiterates in this sloka also about a person who mentally renounces all the desire-oriented actions with all his senses under control, lives happily with his body, which can be termed as the city of Navadvaras, that is, city of 9 gates. As we know, the Navadvaras to a physical body are the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 1 mouth, the genital, and the excretory outlet. Here, one thing we need to understand. As we slowly learn to comprehend or understand Bhagavan's message received so far, we find the cardinal or fundamental truth that Gita is meant more for ordinary mortals like us and paves a way to the path of self-knowledge through a practice of action or karma based on Nishkam Karma, that is, action filled with a feeling of inaction. We also learn from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in this chapter that an enlightened soul, a Sankhya Yogi or Karma Yogi, perceives every other being equally, be a learned Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, or a Chandala, that is, dog eater. Incidentally, I will mention about this holy attitude of an enlightened person in my Vishesh Sukti, which I speak about at the end of this viewpoint. Such a learned and enlightened soul is always in eternal bliss, with thoughts concentrated on Paramatma. This is vividly described by Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the following 2 slokas. The first sloka is, Na prushet priyam prapya, nodvijet prapya chapriyam, sthirabuddhir asamudho, brahma vidbrahmanisthatha. Meaning, such a learned and enlightened soul, treating all happenings, beneficial or otherwise, with equanimity and having steady intellect, and who is free of moha, that delusion, always rests his thoughts on Paramatma. The second sloka is, Kama krodha viyuktanam Yatinam yat satsam habito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Meaning, such self-realized persons will get freed from the twin evils, desire and anger, and have control over their mind and always perceive Paramatma all around. We find in the words of Gopalakrishna Gokhale, to be a Karma Yogi, our motives must be untainted, that is, unblemished or unpolluted by our selfish interests. Being the true indicator of practical Vedanta, the life of a Karma Yogi needs to be a sublime combination of all that is best in spiritual science, in actual action, and in unselfish meditative life. The message in this chapter from Bhagavan Sri Krishna is clear. Ignorant souls like us, restraining ourselves to the path of action, that's Karma Yoga, and as well may go through this life, coping with our responsibilities towards family and possibly the society around, and at the same time reposing faith in Paramatma and remain as a perpetual seeker of truth and reality. Friends, here ends my viewpoint. Here, friends, I wish to say about a Vishesh Sukti, or a special word, which is a connected and illuminating thought from Upanishad or writing by an eminent personality. Also, it is connected with the Bhagavan's message given in this chapter. Here, the Vishesh Sukti is from the glorious composition Manisha Panchakam, written in Sanskrit by Adi Shankaracharya. It is about the fact that the cosmic energy or the God Almighty resides equally well in all beings of His Srishti, that is, of His creation. The same truth is very ingeniously conveyed in this composition by Adi Shankaracharya. If you remember, we also received the sublime message from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the present chapter through the following sloka. Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastani Sunichaiva Supakecha Panditaha Samadarsanah. With the meaning, the wise perceive divinity in all, whether it is a Brahmana with knowledge, or a cow, or an elephant, or a dog, or a Chandala. Chandala means a dog eater. The same truth is reflected in this Vishesh Sukti. Manisha Panchakam is a unique composition by Adi Shankaracharya, containing only 5 slokas. In this composition, an unusual situation is portrayed, that is picturized, by which it is illustrated how a learned person also may exhibit even momentarily an indiscretion and misses the vital truth just mentioned above. That is, both a Chandala and a knowledgeable person are God's creation only, and Jivatma residing inside his soul is part of the Supreme Soul itself. The unusual situation in the composition is this. When Adi Shankaracharya with his disciples was walking in the streets of the holy place Varanasi, or more fondly known as Kashi, a Chandala comes before him on the street. Momentarily besieged or caught by illusion or delusion, the sage asks the Chandala to move away from his path. In fact, the Chandala is the Lord Shiva, the God incarnate himself. The Lord Shiva came in the guise of Chandala to test his disciple Adi Shankara. In the following 2 verses are poems. The Lord poses the divine questions to Adi Shankara, asking him how he can differentiate himself from the Chandala. The first question is contained in this sloka. Annamayad annamayam adhava chaitanyameva chaitanyat yatuvara durikattum vanchasi kim bruhi gaccha gaccheti. Meaning, why did you say go away, go away? Whom do you want to go away? One body made up of food from another body made up of food? Or from one universal spirit from another one? Oh, great sage, between which you desire the distance? The second sloka is Pratyagvastuni vistaranga sahajanandava bodham budhau viproyam swapachoyamityapi mahan koyam vibheda brahmaha. Is not the inner essence, that is, the indweller in all of us, the same? The waveless and steady ocean, namely the innate and natural bliss absolute within us, is not the same? This must be the perfect understanding of a learned person. Oh, great soul! Why is this illusion of discrimination between a learned Brahmin and the other one who is an outcast and a Chandala? Lord Shiva continues questioning Shankara in this sloka. King Gangambudi Bimbitembara Manavu Chandala Vidhi Payha Pure Vantaramasti Kanchana Ghati Vrutkumbha Yorvambare. Meaning, is there any difference of reflection of the Lord of the sky, that is the sun, in the waters of the sacred river Ganga, and its reflection in the dirty water in the ditches on the streets of a Chandala? Is the reflection of the sky inferior in an earthen pot when compared to the one in golden vessel? Hearing these profound questions from the Chandala, Shankara could immediately recognize the Lord Shiva standing before him in the guise of the Chandala. He prostrates before him and accepts his fault with all humility and satisfies the Lord Shiva by giving apt answers contained in the actual 5 slokas of Manisha Panchakam. This ends the Vishwasukti. Before I leave you friends and join me again for the video on chapter 6 of my book, I wish to say a few words about Sant Tulsidas and about his much acclaimed writing known as Dohavadi. Sant Tulsidas, or more fondly known as Goswami Tulsidas, was a 16th century poet and philosopher born in Uttar Pradesh, North India. He was an enlightened spiritual person and a great devotee of Sri Rama, the gods incarnate in Treta Yuga. Tulsidas is considered to be one of the most famous representatives of the Bhakti movement in his contemporary time, when it was afflicted by all divisions in society with regard to religion, morality, and ethics. His literary works were highly impressive. He was a Sanskrit scholar, but is well known for his works in Awadhi, that is a dialect of Hindi. He is particularly known for his Tulsi Krit Ramayana. It is also known as Ramacharitamanasa. He is also well known for his Hanuman Chalisa. Based on his personal observations of life and evils afflicting the contemporary society, he penned his observations in the form of couplets or two-line verses called dohas. The whole collection is called Dohavali, which has around 570 dohas that cover a variety of subjects such as bhakti, that is devotion, satya, that is truth, dharma, that is virtuousness, moha, that is delusion, and jnana, that is knowledge. His writings reveal much more than merely the obscure teachings of the scriptures. His writings also reveal the grand messages of practical value that the society needs in his time and indeed in all times as well. One may find that the couplets in Dohavali appear to jump from one subject to another, but it is a part of the great panorama of this composition. In the words of Sri Ajay Kumar Chaurarya, who penned in English an exposition of Sant Tulsidas Dohavali, he says, it is a sort of a garland of independent flowers of varying colors that have been threaded together to make one unit of a great garland. The principal teachings of Sant Tulsidas echo what we just heard from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the present and early chapters in Gita. Here are some of his sayings. He says, there can be no happiness for a being, nor can its mind know any peace even in a dream, so long as it does not relinquish desire, which is the abode of sorrow. Another important and pertinent saying is, no virtue is equal to wishing the good of others, and no vice greater than hurting others. How much true are these seemingly simple truths? I will try to sing here a couple of Tulsidas Dohe. The first one is, Je jana rukhe विषय रस चिकने राम स्नेहम तुलसी ते प्रिय राम को कानन बसहिम की गेहम. Meaning, only those who have renounced or forsook or abandoned their attachment to the material gross world of sense objects and a desire and longing for them, and who are instead fully engrossed or immersed in enjoying the taste of the nectar of love and affection to Sri Ram, the God incarnate, they are the ones who are the beloved of Paramatma. Then it does not matter, Tulsidas says, whether they stay in a forest as a hermit or an ascetic or live as a simple householder. The second sloka is, Preeti Ram Som नीति पथ छिलिय राग रिस जीती तुलसी संतन के मते इहै भगति की रीति. Meaning, the rule of bhakti, the rule of devotion to Supreme Lord and complete surrender to Him is to have undiluted, unwavering love and affection to Sri Ram, as well as to follow the path of rightful conduct, propriety, that is modesty, and probity, that is honesty, after vanquishing or conquering all negative traits such as rag and krodh, that is desire and anger. As we remember, we have an elaborate and vivid description on the ill effects of these two evils, desire and anger, from Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the earlier chapters and the present chapter also. With these words, I remain.